and UN organizations, honorable committee members, colleagues, children, I wish to welcome you to the 38th, all protocols observed. I wish to invite you to the 38th ordinary session and 21st pre-session of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome the new bureau. And now that, and apologies that we have taken time. Apologize for the long time that we have taken. And without much ado, I would want us to get into the opening session, starting with remarks by the children's representative, Master King Etiang from Burundi, Central Africa. Welcome, Master King. I would request Felicitas from the CSO Forum to inform whether Master King is around or we can move on as he prepares himself.
He was connected. I don't know if he's still here. Good afternoon.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you.
I'm going to check on the participants list. Just a second, Catherine, and I'll inform you.
Okay, just 1 minute.
I think we can continue, and then once he's online, I'll send a message. Then you can get back to him.
Okay, thank you, Madam Felicitas. So at this time, I welcome Ms. Felicitas, the head of the Secretariat of the African Civil Society Organizations Forum on the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, to give some remarks. Welcome, Madam Felicitas.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and good afternoon. Good afternoon to participants, honorable members of the committee, to the Secretariat of the committee. I'm giving the solidarity remarks on behalf of the African civil society organizations. We, as the civil society organizations, we met on the 11th and 12th of November 2021 under the theme Investing in What Matters, the Children, Our Future, the Role of Civil Society Organizations and Children. This theme was to remind us as civil society organizations that in all that we do, we need to be doing it towards investing in children, to take up the leadership role if we're to make sure that this continent becomes a continent that is well led today or tomorrow, because children are the future of the African continent. We also took the opportunity as we met to ensure that we also are taking issues that could strengthen our role, particularly that role of supporting the committee in terms of monitoring the implementation of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. We wish to congratulate the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the chairperson, Joseph Kanjin-Singa, and the whole of the committee in holding the 38th ordinary session. We know that these sessions don't come easy, particularly now where we are faced with the COVID-19 challenges, and our ability to ensure that we become accountable and still follow the requirements and the obligations that are there within our statutes to ensure that we do hold sessions as directed in the makeup of the committee is commendable. We also would want to commit to the committee now and say that as civil society organizations, we are committed to supporting the committee to ensuring that the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child is implemented, and that supportive role is through the monitoring of such implementation by member states and ensure that we do promote the rights of children. We note, Chairperson, that there is a lot of communication, particularly for this session, and we appreciate that the communication channel has been fully utilized, because we see an increase through the session, that there will be more of these during the session. And this is something that we have been advocating for as civil society organizations, and we are happy to see that the advocacy has borne some fruits, and that is coming at the backdrop of one of the child-friendly methods that we have also recently launched called Hiki, for children to also utilize that in engaging in communicating with the committee. We also would want to applaud the committee that post the 37th session. We have seen you taking a number of country missions to member states, particularly to follow up the concluding observations of previous reports, but also to check member states on their statuses regarding the submission of state party reports. And we've seen that even through those country missions that we have engaged with civil society organizations as well as with children. And we hope that this level of engagement continues and that it creates the synergies that we so desperately need in order for us to all contribute to the welfare and the rights of children. And we hope that the findings therein would inform future engagements. We want to also acknowledge that our mandate as civil society organizations in monitoring child rights implementation, we also would want to acknowledge that this time around, we're going to be seeing the Congo-Brazzaville and the Ugandan reports actually being part of the complementary reports that are going to appear before the committee. And want to assure you that we have also developed another platform through the court matrix, where we also would want to hold ourselves accountable in ensuring that such reports actually are developed, and that we also do hold ourselves accountable in terms of where they are. However, we are concerned as civil society organizations that there is a shrinking civil society space across the continent, particularly closing of NGOs in Rwanda and Uganda, and the conflicts that are now happening in Ethiopia, Lake Chad, South Sudan, Eswatini, Mozambique, and that these have really made us to fail on our mandate of protecting and supporting children. We are urging the committee that they make statements on these issues and that children in these countries are taken care of and not be left in the vulnerable state that they are in. We want to appreciate, as civil society organizations, appreciate the committee's continued effort to generate evidence, as is evidenced by the program during the session, where we are going to be seeing researches being launched, particularly one to do with COVID-19, one to do with teenage pregnancy. And we also would want to inform the committee that equally so, we have also done a survey of the Agenda 2040, particularly just wanting to appreciate what children thought of Agenda 2040 and whether or not this was a live document within their lives, but also within their countries. And there are varied recommendations that children have made as a result of this survey, one of those being access to health facilities and access to information, particularly reproductive health, following the general comment that the committee has made. They have also requested that we need to be making some of these documents in child-friendly versions. I'm sure Kings was going to speak to this issue in depth. Chairperson, we want to also make the committee aware that as we recognize child participation, we welcome the committee's resolution move to adopt the child participation guidelines during the session, because we believe that such guidelines will standardize the way that member states are responding to issues of child participation, and that it will be a guiding framework for all stakeholders that are involved in the child sector movement. And it will ensure that the African child's voice matters, because through that, we'll be able to establish structures that speak to African child councils, and such platforms would ensure that children's issues actually do come to life. As I conclude, we also know that the Charter, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, mandates state parties as primary duty bearers, and we want to call upon the committee to ensure that the economic policies that are focused towards ensuring that children have access to education, that issues around technology and electricity involve the business sector, such that they have a mandate to facilitate access. For our statement, we call on the committee to develop guidelines on child-sensitive economic policies. We call on the committee to develop guidelines on privatization of public services, especially those that are affecting basic rights. We encourage the committee to really state to member states to robustly ensure that there is budget allocation towards issues of health, water, education, and policies to do with children's rights in the different countries. Finally, Madam Chair, I want to also say that as the CSO Forum, we met with children on the 6th of November, and such an outcome statement, which Kings is going to speak to, also made sure that children's voices in terms of wanting to be part of the committee's work, so that they appreciate your work and appreciate your role in ensuring that they are protected, and hopefully Kings will come on board to speak to that. As we conclude, we want to take this opportunity to inform you that the CSO Forum has now a new management committee, such a committee made up of 8 people. We have Damon Ouammara from East Africa now as the chairperson. You would recall that we had Madam Amelia Fernanda from the SADC region. We now have Damon Ouammara from the East region. We have the vice chair, Isiba Goba, from the Western Africa region as the chair. And we have the treasurer from SADC as Kitso Motswari, and other members are coming from Central Africa, North Africa, and we have Pan-African organization in ACPF and an international organization in Save the Children International. And such a structure is a structure that is going to facilitate the oversight of the CSO Forum, particularly now that we have a new strategic plan, one that we will share with yourselves as we get to work with each other. Thank you so much for inviting the CSO Forum to the 38th session, and we wish you fruitful deliberations, and count on civil society organizations to continue playing the supporting role to the committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Felicitas, and the CSO Forum for your commitment to the committee and to the children of Africa, and also for your continued efforts as regards child participation, among others. I'm sure we'll continue working together. Thank you so much once again. I'll now invite remarks by the representative of national human rights institutions. Welcome.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Julia Ojambo, and I'll be delivering remarks from Mr. Gilbert Sedihogo, the Executive Director of the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions. It is a privilege and an honor for me to be part of the 38th Ordinary Session of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. This invitation to address this event is an affirmation of the confidence the committee has on us as the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, but also the partnership and complementarity in delivering our mandate. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we hold this meeting today virtually because of COVID-19. The pandemic has ravaged the globe in just 2 years, but it may take decades to recover from the health crisis. This is because COVID-19 metamorphosized into other pandemics, and the scars may remain with us forever. One of such pandemics is sexual and gender-based across the continent. This resulted from the enforcement of the movement restriction measures. Indeed, human rights mandated institutions across the continent have reported a rise in the cases of domestic violence and gender abuse, with children being prevalently affected. As if the pandemic was not catastrophic enough, the increase in the number of armed conflicts in various parts of the continent has worsened the situation. The conflicts have also resulted in hundreds of thousands of internally displaced children. They schools, they are wives. As we speak today, thousands of teenage girls across Africa have not reported to schools. They are mothers. As we speak today, thousands of teenage girls across Africa have not reported to school. They are domestic workers caring for families. As we speak today, thousands of teenage girls across Africa are reeling in massive pain because of female genital mutilation. As we speak today, thousands of teenage boys are soldiers fighting wars they know nothing about. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, in 2015, we set for ourselves 7 aspirations which have to be realized by 2063. How are we going to achieve these aspirations when the present and future realities of Africa's children is being and continues to be shattered? We are running out of time. Our children will not forgive us for letting them down on this promise, a promise of the Africa we want, where no child is left behind. We take note of the states and other actors' plans for recovery from the pandemic. Indeed, that is why at NANRI, we are supporting the committee in jointly developing and implementing the Safe Return to School guidelines. These guidelines are in response to the COVID pandemic, but also other associated pandemics, as I have earlier mentioned. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we in this meeting should not stop at only ensuring the safe return to schools. We must mobilize and harness technical and financial resources from public and private actors to ensure sustainable, reactive, and proactive responses. This explains why partnerships are key, as we intervene in our different roles based on our collective mandates and capacities. While some of us may not have a direct mandate at the national level, collaboration with domestic actors becomes a pillar of mobilizing, aggregating, and funneling our resources to ensure that we set up structures to accelerate recovery during and beyond the pandemic and the epidemics. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, for us to keep track of the progress we have made, we also need to set up monitoring and reporting structures. For this reason, national human rights institutions are essential players at the national level. Indeed, NANRI and other regional bodies can amalgamate on their collective experiences and share this to leverage for best practice. This brings me to the next point on NHRI and affiliate status. While none of the NHRIs has been granted affiliate status with the committee, the increasing threat to the rights of the child demands that more NHRIs and other organizations should be granted status. We also take note that it is only the NHRI of Cameroon that has applied for affiliate status. We are working, therefore, mobilizing others to apply, and at the same time are working towards requesting for an expedited process. Having affiliate status not only provides a formal avenue of directly engaging and contributing to the sessions and activities of the committee, but also allows NHRIs to follow up on the implementation of the decisions of the regional body. It is no secret that most African NHRIs and their staff have a good understanding of international instruments and mechanisms at the detriment of the same knowledge and understanding being applied in our own regional bodies. This has resulted in more engagements with the international bodies than the regional mechanisms. As NANRI, we have identified this imbalance and have been set out to correct it. We have published guidelines and other materials, as well as targeted trainings on the regional mechanisms. The trainings and publications focus on how the NHRIs can complement the work of the regional bodies through submission of shadow and alternative reports, supporting in-country missions, among others. Now that the 38th Ordinary Session is considering reports and issuing communications on various countries, the need for a closer working relationship between NHRIs and the committee becomes key. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I thank the committee for considering NANRI as an important partner. On behalf of the African NHRIs, we commit to support the work of the committee in delivering on its mandate. With those remarks, I would like to conclude by wishing you a successful, productive, and deliberative 38th Ordinary Session. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for your remarks, pointing out the gravity of issues affecting children at this point in time, as well as your commitment to working with the committee. I would request that we invite the representative of the Commissioner of the Department of Health, Humanitarian and Social Affairs, Madam Maria Masise, who is the director, to make remarks on behalf of the Commissioner because she has other matters to attend to. So welcome, Madam Sise.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Monsieur le Président, chers membres du comité, permettez-moi tout d'abord de vous féliciter, Monsieur le Président, pour votre élection et de féliciter aussi Madame Anna et Monsieur Aboubakrin pour leur élection, et je vous assure de l'engagement du département de la santé, des affaires humanitaires et de développement social de notre soutien pour que vous menez à bien votre mandat. Okay. Excellency, Chairperson of the PRC Subcommittee on Human Rights and Governance, Honorable Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child, Honorable Committee Member, Distinguished Representative from Member States, REX, AGA, and National Human Rights Institution, representative from UN agencies, civil society organization, children representative, colleague from the Secretariat of a committee, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the 38th session of the African Committee of Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child. I commend the committee for organizing yet another virtual session despite the challenges that continue being presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is an indication that the committee remains resilient and committed to executing its mandate enshrined in the African Charter on the right and welfare of the child, as well as to achieve the goal of Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2040, regardless of the challenges being encountered. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as highlighted in the previous session of the committee, the COVID pandemic has and continues to bring unprecedented challenges in the realization of the right of the children in the continent. Disruption to families, friends, education, daily routine, and the wider community can have negative consequences on children's well-being, learning, development, and protection. Let me take this opportunity to urge member states to prioritize children's rights in all their responses to the COVID-19 pandemic and ensure that children's rights are not infringed in the process. I also urge member states to continue implementing the committee guiding note on COVID-19 and its implication on children's rights and welfare to ensure that children continue to enjoying their rights during the pandemic. In the same line, I would like to commend the committee for its enhanced effort in engaging the challenges by commissioning a continental assessment on the impact of the COVID-19 on the rights of the child and taking the initiative to develop guidelines on safe return to school, which in my view will provide a practical guide for member states and stakeholders in ensuring the right to education of all children during and beyond the pandemic. The African Union and its policy organ continue to play a role in the realization of children's rights on the continent. A number of initiatives have been implemented in line with our large mandate, and will mention just but a few as we celebrate the African Union Theme of the Year as adopted by the Assembly, titled Art, Culture, and Heritage, Labor for Building the Africa We Want. We have implemented many activities. The decision to have this theme draw inspiration in the African Union Agenda 2063. Celebrating the theme, our focus on the promotion of African identity, common heritage, and shared values centered on children. Most of the implemented activities in the roadmap of the theme of the year are targeting to have children of the continent whose solid identity is established in the reach of African culture, tradition, civilization, value, and communal understanding of child protection. The entry into force of the African Charter on the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance in May 2021, and the ongoing establishment of the Great Museum of, can Mr. John? Sorry, Madam Zainab, can you please switch off your mic? Thank you. So, and then the ongoing establishment of the Great Museum of Africa and permanent memorial of slave trade. 5, to ensure our aspiration to enable children exercise the unique position and privilege they occupy in the African society, and that for the full and harmonious development of their personality. Ladies and gentlemen, our activities in the Department of Health, Humanitarian and Social Development focuses on humanitarian matter, drug control, ending child marriage, FGM, and other harmful practices against children. And the fights against sexual exploitation are meaningfully contributing to our collective endeavor to create a continent where all the rights and welfare of the children are respected, protected, and implemented as prescribed in the African Children Charter. It is, however, important to highlight that despite the progress that has been made by the African Union in the promotion and protection of child rights, the continent continues to face challenges that impede the realization of children's rights. Among the challenges is the exponential rise in the protection concern that children on the move are facing, the perpetual cases of children associated with armed groups, and the act of terrorists, the number of young drug users, and its increased link with drug trafficking and other forms of organized crime. The particular challenges of the digital world are adversely affecting the development of children. The challenges that children, in particular in vulnerable situations, are facing include children with disability, children in stricter situation, and the girl child. Exploitation of children in the business world and the peculiar impact of climate change in the right of and welfare of the child. I therefore urge member states to adopt a comprehensive and transformative approach to take decisive measures to strengthen their effort in responding to existing and emerging challenges of children's rights individually in their respective territory and collectively in integrated manner. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your attention and wish the committee a successful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Director, for your remarks and continued assistance to the growth as well as collaboration with the committee. Thank you so much. And at this time, I'll invite the representative of AGA, Ambassador Salah Hamad from the African Union Commission, to give some remarks. Welcome, Ambassador Salah.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Acting Secretary of the Committee, the moderator of this opening ceremony. Honorable Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and all honorable experts, members of the committee, Your Excellency, Madame Amira Al-Fadl, Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian and Social Affairs, represented by Madame Mariama Sise, Director for Health, for Humanitarian and Social Affairs, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of the PRC Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance, Your Excellencies, Ministers, Heads of Delegation, Delegates of State Parties to the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, the distinguished representative of the regional economic communities, distinguished representative of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and all UN agencies, distinguished representative of the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, representatives of civil society and non-governmental organizations, colleagues from the African Union Commission, and colleagues from the Secretariat of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed. On behalf of the Chairperson of the African Governance Platform, of the African Governance Architecture and the African Peace and Security Architecture, known as AGA-APSA, and all members of the platform, I feel greatly honored and privileged to have been afforded this opportunity to address this August Assembly on the occasion of the 38th ordinary session of the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Let me begin by congratulating His Excellency the Chairperson for being re-elected as Chair of the Committee, and also to congratulate all of his colleagues, honorable experts of the Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, for the diligent manner in which this ordinary session has been organized. I also would like to recognize and thank members of the Secretariat of the Committee for their hard work and for being the catalyst for the effectiveness of the committee. I must also extend my gratitude to all delegates of AU member states and participants for making time in between their busy schedules to attend this very important session. It is my belief that the deliberations and the outcomes of this ordinary session will go a long way in enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of the African human and people's rights system, particularly the rights of the African child. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed collectively to promote and protect the rights of the child in Africa, we must admit the challenges faced by our beloved continent during this COVID-19 pandemic. This requires us to focus our eyes on how best to advance the rights of the child and also to address issues related to poverty, inequality, marginalization, and exclusion on our continent as we make concentrated efforts toward effective implementation of Agenda 2063. Beyond pursuing our noble goal for greater enjoyment of civil rights and political liberties, we have to redouble our efforts as African Union member states to ensure that the African people enjoy the right to food, the right to safe water and sanitization, the right to health, the right to housing, the right to education, and the right to decent clothing, as well as the right to clean environment. The African continent has witnessed decades of numerous human rights challenges, resulting from a diverse range of factors, which include, among others, war, poverty, corruption, as well as exclusion and marginalized groups. It's against this background that our heads of state and government solemnly resolve to promote and safeguard freedom, justice, equality, and human rights dignity in Africa by declaring the Human and People's Rights Decade, which comes with a 10-year action plan that begins this year, 2021, to support our member states to fulfill their human rights obligations. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, despite the growing governance deficit in Africa, time has come for the African continent to overcome decades of numerous human rights challenges by focusing on ways and means to promote and protect the rights of its citizens. Particularly, we need to focus more on protecting the rights of the child who has been ripped of his life by being recruited to join the armed groups and the terrorist organizations across the continent. The children that has been deprived from their education, the children that they have been deprived of their innocent lives. I wish to also see this opportunity to call on our member states to cooperate with all AU organs with the human rights mandate, particularly this esteemed committee, to ensure that human and people's rights, in particular the rights of the child, are fully reinforced in each and every part of our beloved continent. In this regard, member states are urged to submit regular reports to the institutions that we have put in place as mechanisms that are promoting and protecting human and people's rights on the continent. Member states are called on to uphold the values and the principles that are enshrined in our shared values instruments. This 38th ordinary session of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child is indeed an opportunity to consolidate on the gains that have been made so far for the promotion and protections of the rights of the child in Africa. This, of course, despite all challenges faced by this pandemic, as well as other challenges in many parts of our beloved continent. But most importantly, it's an opportunity to harp on the responsibility of our AU member states in upholding the human rights of their citizens without any discrimination or abuse. This session is also an opportunity to further remind all AU member states on the need to develop various strategic responses to COVID-19, guided by the principles enshrined in our AU shared values that are inclusive of the health of our children, the future of Africa. Once again, I would like to express our appreciation to the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child for organizing this important session, and invite you all to contribute your ideas and suggestions on how we can move forward together and collectively to make this session a success. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ambassador San, for your remarks, as well as your many recommendations to improve on the rights of the child in Africa. Thank you once more. And now I invite the chairperson of the PLC Subcommittee on Human Rights and Governance, Ambassador of Zimbabwe to Ethiopia and representative to the African Union, Ambassador Tawanga, to give some remarks. Welcome.
Thank you, moderator. Excellency Amira El-Fadil, Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian and Social Affairs, represented here by Director Mariama Sise, Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, whom we congratulate for re-election, other dignitaries here present, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, children for whom we are here to serve. In my capacity as the chairperson of the Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance, I wish to thank the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child for inviting me to make a statement at this opening ceremony of its 38th ordinary session. Long may this relationship continue as we all seek the same ends. Allow me at the outset to congratulate Ethiopia, the Seychelles, and the Republic of Congo for submitting their state party reports on the implementation of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, as required in Article 43 of the Charter. While this is welcome, it is nevertheless a concern that among the 50 member states that have ratified the Charter, only 40 have submitted at least one report on the implementation of the Charter. I therefore encourage member states to fully commit to their reporting obligations for those that have not done so, to also ratify, and for those that have not done so, to ratify the protocol. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the COVID-19 pandemic has been the single biggest challenge during 2020 and 2021. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on children's special and distinct rights, as well as their welfare, has been overwhelming. This has woken us up to the need to uphold and protect the rights of children, especially those who are already disadvantaged, deprived, vulnerable, and are subject to discrimination and marginalization. Children's rights to survive, learn, stay safe, and be heard have been disrupted. Various member states, including Zimbabwe, implemented measures to contain the spread of the deadly coronavirus, including school closures, home isolation, and community lockdowns, all of which had secondary impacts on children and their livelihoods. While COVID-19 justified the temporary school closures and community lockdowns, for children, this went beyond interruption of classes. With closure of schools, the right to adequate food was compromised in countries where school feeding programs are available. The measures, despite their temporary nature, led to permanent dropouts, as has already been mentioned by previous speakers, particularly of girls, children with disabilities, and children coming from economically disadvantaged families. This also led to a regression in the progress made in reducing the incidences of harmful cultural practices such as female genital mutilation and child marriages. It is essential that our Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child takes a holistic approach in finding lasting solutions to recommend to governments to address these problems which we face here and now. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has also led to an increase in internet usage. Educational institutions adopted various high-tech and in some cases low-tech solutions to assure the continuity of learning. Although much focus is turned to online learning platforms, many public schools are not set to use them and don't have the capacity to run online teaching. According to the International Finance Corporation, Africa has the lowest number of internet connections. Only 22% of the continent has internet access. African children live in the most disconnected places in the world and face the least dependable and slowest internet at the least affordable prices. That is, if the internet is accessible at all. This digital divide further exacerbates inequalities in the long term and has a negative effect to Africa's socio-economic development. The rush to access online learning without adequate protections also like data privacy concerns for children and exposure of children to online sexual exploitation. We therefore ask our Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child to consider and recommend how children can be protected from sexual exploitation on this poorly regulated online space. This protection can be in the form of assisting member states in crafting or augmenting data private laws that protect children and larger communities in line with Article 27 of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which requires states to protect children from sexual exploitation and abuse. The contents of Article 27 proceed to oblige
Recording in progress.
Apologies, Chair. I think I got disconnected at some point. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, after zeroing in on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on children, let me now, as I should, once again highlight some of the harmful cultural practices which continue to be blots on our collective conscience. These include, among others, child marriages, child labor, using children as soldiers, and female Chairperson, sorry, I keep getting disconnected for some reason. It is important that stakeholders ensure that children are given the opportunity to be heard during judicial and administrative proceedings, and that their views are taken into consideration is articulated in Article 4.2 of the Charter. It is also important that children are informed of their rights in an age-appropriate manner, and that the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, in collaboration with member states, should conduct community-based awareness activities on the rights of the child, taking into consideration that responses should be tailored with the special vulnerabilities of the concerned group of children or community, as children and communities are not homogeneous. We should also take advantage of the synergies that exist between the African Charter and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the work of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. The two pieces of legislation are complementary and both work and both provide the framework through which children and their welfare should be addressed. Taking these and other challenges into consideration, member states of the African Union as the principal duty bearers under the African Children's Charter, in collaboration with the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child and partner organizations, are called upon to uphold and protect the rights of children to the maximum extent in all situations. The committee and state parties should redouble their efforts to create a just, inclusive, and sustainable future for the African child in Africa's Agenda 2040 for children, fostering an Africa fit for children, which is aligned to Agenda 2063, specifically Aspiration 6. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you agree to in this particular session must be implementable and must be implemented. In conclusion, the Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance will remain engaged to support the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child in their effort to protect the rights and welfare of children in these trying times. I thank you, Chairperson, and my apologies for the various interruptions. I will submit my statement so that any gaps can then be filled. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Taonga, for your rich remarks on issues pertaining to the protection of children, and also your commitment to assist the committee in the protection and promotion of the rights of the child. Thank you once more. At this time, I would request that we have the child representative making his remarks, because he's already online, before the official opening by the chairperson of the committee. And I would invite Master King to give the remarks on behalf of the children of Africa. Welcome, King. I would ask Madam Felicitas whether the speaker is online.
I think he's not longer online. He just, maybe he has an internet problem because he is not longer online.
Okay.
We had asked him to rename himself back to Ki from Kushishi. So let me just check, but he was online.
Let's see, let me look for him also.
He's online, he's still Kushishi. I don't know if he would need help to unmute himself.
Yes, I can see now he's online. Isaac, you assist him to unmute. He's muted.
Philippe, you need to speak to him in French for him to be able to speak.
Yeah, now it's fine. Monsieur Koussissi, vous pouvez y aller. C'est à votre tour maintenant de faire votre discours. Nous vous écoutons.
Bon après-midi à tous. Je m'appelle King Etienne, je viens de plus de 100 enfants issus de 54 États d'Afrique. Nous sommes rassemblés pour un forum virtuel des enfants du 19e forum des OSC. La charte de l'enfance africaine prévoit la participation active des acteurs de la société civile à l'appui du rôle du comité de l'enfance africaine pour assurer la mise en œuvre effective de la charte au niveau des pays. Compte tenu de ce qui précède le forum de la société civile, forum des OSC a été créé.
This forum was set up in 2009 to give a platform to civil society organizations working with children so as to ensure that they participate in matters pertaining to the African Committee of Experts on Rights and Welfare of Children. The forum has 6 objectives, among which is the promotion of partnerships among civil society, including children, to ensure the promotion and protection of rights of children on the continent. The forum takes place twice a year before the committee session of the African Committee, to ensure they follow up developments on rights and welfare of children. There were representatives of the African Union and the Forum of Children and Civil Society Organizations. The Civil Society Forum acknowledges that children are key stakeholders and play a major role in the following up of the implementation of the Charter and commits to ensure that they participate fully. There is therefore a platform to maintain dialogue with children. We would like to thank the CSO Forum for this opportunity. During the forum that took place 6 October, we did discuss several issues pertaining to children, and we focused on 2, that is education, early childhood education, and children participation. With regard to participation, we acknowledge that as participation has been given more attention and much has been done to ensure that children are taken into account and requested to share their views on issues pertaining children. And that is why we are taking the floor today. We also feel that there are still some challenges and gaps. Some of the challenges are lack of full involvement of children and lack of access to information, especially in remote areas, handicapped children. We need to ensure that everyone is informed. We also need to ensure that we work closely with adults. Sometimes adults don't consider that the children have real opinions. They do not fully respect. So we also need to ensure that we involve rural children and marginalized communities. The forum also requires that we are fully involved and we need to allocate resources so as to ensure full participation of children and also create child-friendly spaces where they can be involved, and also to support translation of policy and information in local languages that are easily accessible to children, and also to ensure full participation of children in a significant manner. With regards to education, his microphone is not very good. Needs to ensure that we improve quality of education. We feel that we need to ensure that we put a stop to exclusion of children. We cannot hear fully. We know that some children are marginalized. He is breaking. I apologize. We cannot hear him. We apologize, his sound is poor, we cannot hear him. We apologize, we cannot hear him.
Monsieur King? Allô? Monsieur King, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur King?
Mr. King, hello. Please come closer to the microphone because we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. The interpreters cannot follow you. Thank you.
Essayez de parler maintenant, on va voir si c'est mieux.
Please try to speak. We see whether we can hear you better. Please speak, Mr. Kusikiti, to test if we can hear you well. Seems like he can't hear what Philip is saying. Seems like he's no longer online.
The speaker has an internet problem, so he's not longer online.
Okay. Apologies to the children of Africa for the challenges that we are already seeing. And
he's trying to reconnect.
Okay, then we
if
can
you can give him 30 seconds to reconnect.
For now, it's okay. Je m'excuse pour la connexion qui était instable.
I apologize. My internet connection is not very stable. Let me continue. Handicapped children do not have the same opportunities to access education, especially children with mental issues, delayed growth. These children have also been marginalized because we don't have enough early childhood centers that are adapted to their kind of learning. The early childhood centers are not child-friendly, especially those with special needs. We recommend the following to improve access and quality of education for early childhood education for all children on the continent. Seems like we have lost him again. Apologize.
He is back.
Permettez de continuer.
Allow me to proceed.
Parce que ma connexion est très instable ici aujourd'hui.
I'm having challenges with my connection. I was saying that we recommend the following so as to improve access and quality of early childhood education for children. Education should be free, and also to ensure that we have investments in ensuring that they have quality ECD centers, and also to ensure that quality service is offered in early childhood centers, and also to create special centers for handicapped children. And finally, we recommend to ensure that meals are provided to children in learning centers.
Okay. Philip, you can check whether he's done, because I can see he's now muted.
Monsieur, voilà, merci.
Oui, j'ai terminé mon discours. Merci beaucoup à
Yes,
vous.
I'm done with my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Master Etienne. We hear you and concur that child participation for and by all children cannot be underestimated in order to protect and promote the rights of the child. Thank you so much. At this time, may I now congratulate and also invite the Honorable Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, Honorable Joseph Senga, to make the opening remarks. Welcome, Honorable Chair.
Nous vous remercions très sincèrement, Madame.
We thank you, Catherine, on behalf of our Secretariat for moderating this session, distinguished delegates from member states of the African Union, Madame Mariam Sisse, representative of the Commissioner in charge of health, humanitarian, and social development issues in this opening ceremony. Your Excellency, Chairperson of the PRC Subcommittee on Human Rights and Governance, honorable members of the Committee of the Experts on the Rights, Ambassador Salah Hamad, representing the African Governance Architecture, distinguished representatives of national human rights institutions, distinguished representatives of UN agencies, CSOs, and other international agencies, representative of the Forum of the Civil Society Organization, children's representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. At this moment, we are now starting the opening ceremony of the 38th session and the 21st pre-session on the Committee of Experts. I would like to welcome you all to this session, which is taking place virtually. And this is the second session that is taking place since the Secretariat was set up in Maseru in the Kingdom of Lesotho. We are very glad to have many of you as representatives of state parties, representatives of children, representatives of delegations of member states, UN agencies, NGOs, and CSOs working on children's issues. We thank you for your commitment towards children's rights. We are glad to have you online, and this is a sign of your commitment to rights and welfare of the African child. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear children, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to remind you that during the 37th ordinary session that also took place virtually in March 2021, the committee thanked and welcomed the new members joining the committee, thus so as to orient them with the work of the committee and to ensure full implementation of the Charter and Agenda 2040. The members of the committee and the Secretariat had an orientation session and a launch meeting of the working group that took place last week, 8th to 10th November 2021 in Bujumbura, in the Republic of Burundi. The objective of this session was to ensure that new members get proper orientation, and during this session, the current and other members were also invited to ensure that all committee members have a constructive dialogue on the noble mission of this committee so as to ensure that the rights and welfare of the children are a reality on the continent. During this session, the committee considered different issues, such as a presentation on the AU policy organs in the decision-making processes, the reforms of the African Union, the subcommittees of the PRC, Peace and Security Council, human rights, mechanisms of the African Union, rules, the revised rules of procedure of the committee, guidelines on report writing, and also considering other reports. In addition to that, we need to confirm that in the implementation of this mechanism and strengthening children's rights protection, the committee also set up working groups on the rights and welfare of the children, on children's rights and handicaps, children's rights and environment, implementation of decisions of the committee. These working groups are set up taking into account different challenges and the need to have a systematic approach so as to overcome the challenges in a sustainable manner. We also need to recall that the first three working groups are made of committee members as well as independent experts. And the launch of the committees took place on the 10th November 2021. During this session, members of different working groups adopted their work plan so as to ensure that they protect children's rights and welfare on the continent pursuant to the principles and of the Charter and the aspirations of Agenda 2040. Excellencies, distinguished guests, children, ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, several years ago, the committee adopted guidelines on the status of affiliates and observers so as to institutionalize the relationship between the committee and national human rights institutions so as to ensure the implementation of the Charter. To date, only one national human rights institution has requested to be an affiliate member. And taking into account that these directives have not yet been taken up by human rights institutions, the committee with other human rights institutions organized on the 26th a workshop on human rights institutions on ensuring they strengthen the work with the committee. This workshop was an opportunity to disseminate the rules on observer and affiliate status, and they were also invited to make requests to be observer or affiliate so as to contribute to the promotion and protection of children's rights on the continent. During those sessions, the committee also organized a workshop to share experiences on ratification and reporting on the Charter. During this workshop, member states shared the challenges that they faced in terms of drafting and submitting reports, as well as ratification and also withdrawing reservations to the Charter. The Sahrawi Arab Republic informed participants that they have ratified the Charter and they are awaiting to submit the instruments with the Office of the Legal Counsel of the African Union. So Sahrawi Arab Republic is congratulated and is encouraged to finalize the process of submitting its instruments to finalize the ratification. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to urge member states that have not yet ratified to do so, and for those who have reservations to withdraw them, and state parties to ensure they observe the requirements to report as rather pursuant to the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of Children. I also urge civil society organizations to continue following up on the submission of complementary reports so as to assist them draft and submit their reports to the committee as well as their recommendations. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear children, ladies and gentlemen, during this 38th session, the committee will, among others, consider reports from state parties, especially Ethiopia and Seychelles, complementary reports from CSOs from the DRC, Uganda, as well as a presentation and discussion on different reports, especially the study on the impact of COVID-19 on children's welfare, the continental study on children that do not have any parental guidance, and also on adolescents. This session will also allow to present and discuss assessment reports on the commemoration of the African Day of the Child and the adoption of the concept note on the Children's Day 2022. The committee will also listen to a presentation and will deliberate on decisions from other reports. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this session, the committee started by appointing a new bureau to replace the outgoing bureau, which term had come to an end. Pursuant to the previous rules of procedure, there were 5 members of the bureau. Now we only have 3, that is chair, vice chair, and a rapporteur. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to introduce the new bureau and to thank the outgoing bureau for the very good work done together despite COVID-19 that started immediately after our election in November 2019. You'll also realize that the incoming chair is myself, Joseph Ndaisenga, and the incoming vice chair is Honorable Anne Musiwa. Anne Musiwa, maybe you may just greet participants. If you are online, you may switch on your microphone and camera so as to say hello to distinguished participants.
Afternoon. Good afternoon.
If you can switch on your video.
My apologies, I'm having network challenges. I'm trying. My name is Honorable Anne Musiwa from Zimbabwe. I'm having challenges. I'm trying my best.
It's okay. We've seen your face.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much. I'm having challenges. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Merci et à présent.
Thank you, and right at this juncture, now they can see you very well. Now, the rapporteur of the committee, who is no other than Honorable Abubakrin El Chira. Honorable, can you turn on your mic? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to join you and the Vice Chair to express all my gratitude and confidence of the members of the Committee of the Rights of Children and Welfare. And I'd like to pray God that I should be up to the task that has been entrusted to me. I work in the Ministry of in charge of children in Mauritania. Thank you very much. We would like to thank you very sincerely. We would also like to thank all the new members of the Bureau. And we would like to express all our congratulations to the new team. And my profound gratitude to the former members of the Bureau. I also like to express my gratitude to all the colleagues and members of the committee and the whole secretariat team. As far as I'm concerned, I am committed to share my small experience with the new team. And that way we're going to work together to continue ensuring that we make progress on the work of the committee. Having had the honor of presiding over the destiny of this organ, I can say from this podium that my work has been facilitated by my fellow Bureau members, as well as the honorable members of the committee and the whole secretarial team who have assisted us on a daily basis. The balance sheet, if it has to be made, is really positive because these last 2 years have taught us how to work and work better. The sessions have continued online and the follow-up of the implementation has always been ensured during this pandemic. The guidance note on the implementation of the Charter and the protection of children during COVID-19 and after has been well implemented by the African Union member states in view of the presentation made by the state representatives during our previous session. The committee therefore awaits more information on the concrete measures taken and their impact on the situation of children. During this mandate, field activities were carried out, especially in the Republic of Sudan, Botswana, and the Kingdom of Lesotho. They showed us to assess the situation of the rights of the child in the Blue Nile, South Kordofan regions, and to monitor the implementation of the recommendations and concluding solutions in Maseru, the new headquarters of our secretariat, as well as the commemoration of the Day of the African Child, where among the actions carried out, moreover, in Gaborone, in Botswana, the committee advocated for the submission of the initial report of the state party, as well as for the withdrawal of the reservations to the charter for a full implementation. On the other hand, these activities will continue after the session in accordance with the committee's 2021 work plan. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear children, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It would be remiss of me if I ended my remarks without thanking everyone for having responded to our invitation and by participating massively in this virtual session, while also congratulating the new members of the Bureau and also thanking the outgoing Bureau for their work. I therefore wish you fruitful deliberations for the next 10 years. It is on this note of thanks and good wishes that I declare open the proceedings of the 38th session of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would ask her for advice on how to proceed. whether to break or to continue. Thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam. I propose that we break for 15 minutes and try to come. Let's try and reconvene in 15 minutes, please. So return at 55. Time and Masero time. 15 minutes. We're going to start with the presentation of the partners. There's a list. The partners who would like to take the floor have already registered with the Secretariat and actually, and especially more specifically with Ayalo. Thank you very much.
What is that, Nicole?
what you call it, Banono representative Ministry of Health. So this is what I was coming.
Hi, sorry, I was doing.
Philippe, je crois qu'il est déjà là. Je ne sais pas si les interprètes sont en place. Très bien.
Oui, monsieur le président, ils sont en place.
Et pour les autres?
What about the others?
Oui, monsieur le président, je pense que l'on peut commencer.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think we can resume.
Oui, Philippe, qu'est-ce que vous dites?
Yes, Philippe, what are you saying? I was saying that we can resume it. Thank you.
Philippe, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Philippe, can you hear me?
Monsieur le Président, je vous entends très bien.
Mr. Chair, I can hear you loud and clear.
Je pense que l'on peut commencer.
I think we can resume. I don't think you're audible enough. I barely hear you.
Monsieur le Président, je ne sais pas si maintenant c'est mieux.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if it's any better now.
On peut commencer, oui.
Yes, we can start. The interpreters are ready.
Je vois que nous avons
I see that we have 15 organizations who are going to make presentations. I'm going to give the order so that they can prepare. And thereafter, we're going to give the floor to Inayin. So we are going to start with Plan International. Thereafter, the African movement on youth labor. Then World Vision.
Huitièmement, ACPF. Neuf, le Centre pour les droits reproductifs, Center for Reproductive Rights. 10, de la Omar Institute. 11, Zimbabwe National Council for the Welfare and Children. 12, ECPAT. 13, Defense for Children International. 14, Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. Et enfin, le Center for Human Rights. Je ne sais pas s'il y a une organisation inscrite que je n'ai pas pu évoquer ici, énoncer. À présent, nous allons commencer par...
Monsieur le honorable président.
Oui, honorable téléphone.
Vous avez mentionné...
You have mentioned 15, but only spoke to 14. I will verify the list. Now we will give the floor. And this is 13 organizations, 15 organizations, and each will have 3 minutes, and that means 45 minutes. We therefore urge you to respect time given the delay. We will start with Plan International. Plan, you have the floor.
Est-ce que Plan International est en ligne? Sinon,
Plan, are you there?
On commence avec la deuxième organisation.
If not, we will move to the second organization. That is the movement on children.
Est-ce qu'on peut encore une fois vérifier avec le secrétariat les organisations?
Secretariat, could you please organize the organizations that are online and that are ready to make their presentation?
Through you, Chair, should I list the name of the organization so that they can get prepared? With your permission?
Bon, c'était déjà fait, mais il faut plutôt...
I already did this. We just need to ensure that we know who is online. Because I did give a list of the organizations in the order that they were supposed to present. Now the issue is to know whether they are online or not.
Yeah, as they did not, some of them, they
Est-ce que Plan International est prêt pour le moment?
Plan, are you ready? Plan International, are you ready?
Pas en ligne, mais
Yes,
alors, vous pouvez nous donner l'ordre par rapport à... Je vois Plan.
Ok, maintenant ils sont là, c'est bon.
Alors, Plan International is ready?
Vous avez 3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Plan International would like to congratulate the African Committee of Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child for organizing the 38th session. And we are particularly delighted that you still make time to accommodate and make provision for partners to share progress made in the realization of children's rights in Africa. We're also happy to know that the committee will be considering state party reports from Ethiopia and the Seychelles, and also complimentary report from Uganda and the DRC. Now, Plan will continue to work with government in these countries, and especially to implement the committee's recommendation through the concluding observations. Now, as an organization that strives for a just world that advances children's rights and equality for girls, Plan will be working with partners at all levels to improve the quality of life of girls, and especially as the pandemic rages on and erodes the gains made in gender equality. Can you allow me, Honorable Chair, also to congratulate the new Bureau and also to share with you a few initiatives our organization had engaged in since we last addressed the committee. We continue to support initiatives to reduce unintended adolescent pregnancies and support child mothers through increased access to gender-responsive SRHR services in both development and humanitarian settings. Honorable Chair, as you are aware, Plan International, the Center for Reproductive Rights, ACPF, and the committee are currently undertaking a continental study on teenage pregnancy in line with the impact of COVID on girls, as we all know. Now, Plan is currently supporting safe return of girls back to school and ensuring that the school environment is safe for girls. Plan offices support online learning through provision of portable radios and internet access in most of the countries where we work. We have also invested in the establishment of safe space and environment for girls to meet, to discuss, and also to learn in safe environments. Now, Plan continues to embark on interventions that ensure girls are safe both at home and also online. We devoted the 2021 International Day of the Girl to intensify our call to tech companies, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, etc., to make the internet and social media spaces safe for girls under our Free to Be Online campaign. I'm pleased to inform you that that Plan and Save the Children have completed the development of the child-friendly version of the African Children Charter, and we'll be presenting to the committee later this week. This is our contribution to the Charter at 30. Honorable Chair, I would like to draw the attention of the committee to two key issues affecting girls and children on the continent. Firstly, we are concerned about the plight facing girls who find themselves in crisis situations and who helplessly see their dreams and aspirations shattered because of war and other forms of humanitarian crisis. We would like to use this opportunity to pay tribute to all children and families who have been impacted by wars and other crises in Africa. And despite the progress made by member states to improve safety and security of children, particularly girls, we are concerned that prolonged humanitarian crises continue to spread across the continent. Cases in Sudan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Mozambique, just to mention a few. This crisis results in displacement, incidents of child marriages, FGM, school dropouts, deprivation, physical and sexual abuses, hunger, insecurity, family separation, and loss of lives. The situation also violates the spirit and aspiration of the African Civil Charter. The second issue relates to increased cases of child marriage across the continent. We hope the upcoming Third African Girls Summit would come up with concrete recommendations to address this violation. I would like to highlight the case of Anna Machaya, may her soul rest in perfect peace, which sadly occurred in Zimbabwe in July of this year. Her untimely, avoidable, and needless death, and those of many other girls, exposes the dark side of child marriage and the lack of commitment by some member states to align the age of child in line with Article 2 of the Children's Charter. We are indeed saddened by the unfortunate situation. In light of the foregoing, plan would like to make the following recommendations. One, there's a need to support genuine efforts for peaceful, diplomatic, and non-military solutions to the crisis across the continent. Secondly, we would like to call on the Special Rapporteur on Ending Child Marriage, the Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage, to undertake a mission to Zimbabwe to follow up on the Anna Machaya case, whilst calling on the committee to continue to encourage member states to align the definition of a child to the Article 2 of the Charter. As an organization, we would want to reiterate our commitment to collaborate with the committee and to make children's rights and equality for girls in Africa a reality. We wish you a successful 38th session. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup à Plan. Vous avez pris
Thank you, Plan. You took 5 minutes. For the others, we will not be able to give that because you will share your presentations with Secretariat so that this is taken into account as we prepare our report for this meeting. So for the rest, please stick to your 3 minutes. The African Movement for Child and Young Youth Workers is next.
Est-ce que Ayalo, vous avez la liste de...
Ayalo, do you have the list of the organizers that are online?
Yes, Chair, but some of them, they did not send the names of the presenters. They only confirmed at the institutional level. So I think we can go to the next organization. We're trying to check the names.
Merci, Grâce Machel Trust.
Thank you, Graça Machel Trust.
Thank you very much, Chair, for this opportunity, and thank you. Hello to everyone. So, Honorable Chairperson, we wish to congratulate the committee firstly for hosting this 38th ordinary session, and we also want to congratulate the newly elected bureau. We further wish to congratulate the committee for conducting a successful investigative mission in South Kordofan and the Blue Nile regions of the Republic of Sudan. This clearly demonstrates your commitment in silencing the gun in our continent. Mr. Chair, as the Graça Machel Trust, we remain committed to promote and protect all rights for all children on our continent. We are therefore delighted to share the following milestones, which we directly relate to the core mandate of the committee. Firstly, we commissioned a rapid mapping exercise to document the existing local remedies for child rights violations in Burundi, DRC, Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa. As part of this exercise, we assessed the accessibility of local remedies as well as their friendliness to children. And we also managed to identify systemic and structural barriers that impede the effective implementation of ECD policies and programs across the continent through an ECD rapid mapping exercise that we commissioned earlier this year. We also successfully launched the Haki for All Children during the 19th CSO Forum, primarily to increase children's knowledge and understanding and their capacity to promote and protect their own rights and that of their peers. Mr. Chair, the rapid mapping exercise on the local remedies also revealed that the majority of children are still struggling to access local remedies, and in some instances, children are not aware of existing local remedies on child rights violations within their respective communities. We therefore urge the committee to humbly request member states to commit and invest resources to make local remedies accessible, visible, and child-friendly, particularly in rural and informal settlements. Mr. Chair, while we appreciate and acknowledge the efforts of member states in developing robust ECD policies across the continent, through our ECD mapping exercise, we identified a lot of systemic and structural barriers that impede the effective implementation of ECD policies and programs across the continent. The return for investment in ECD speaks for itself. It is a solid foundation that every child deserves. We therefore urge the committee to encourage and request member states to make concerted efforts to increase public investment in ECD and operationalize their respective ECD policies into practical and measurable actions. Mr. Chair, as indicated during the committee's 37th extraordinary session in 2020, we successfully launched the Haki for All Children during the 19th session. Haki for All Children includes both the online digital learning platform and a workbook, which teaches children about their rights as reflected on the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and what to do when those rights have been violated. We humbly request the committee to encourage and advise ministries of education across the continent to integrate the Haki for All Children into existing life skill programs and civic education interventions. Mr. Chair, this is a valuable investment that will go a long way in the child rights discourse within our continent. Through the Haki for All Children, we will surely empower children as human rights defenders and build a sustainable culture that respects all children for all rights for all children. Once again, we wish to pledge our commitments to support the committee in making Africa fit for her children by translating their rights into a reality. We will continue to amplify actions and innocent voices of African children to advance equality for present and future generations of our beautiful continent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci beaucoup pour Grâce Machel.
Thank you, Grasta Machel Trust. Equality Now.
Vous nous suivez? Equality Now.
Equality Now, your turn to make your submission. World Vision. World Vision.
I think they are not online.
SOS. SOS Slaves.
Save the children. Save the children.
Save the Children.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you.
Honorable members of the committee and state parties representative, all protocol observed. Save the Children congratulates the committee for successfully convening this session and welcomes the opportunity to address this esteemed body. Our continent is going through a triple crisis with devastating impact on children. First, the COVID pandemic. As we heard, I will not elaborate on this, but I would like just to insist on one point, the fact that we have 265 million children whose education has been disrupted because of COVID. This number fluctuates as schools have to close and reopen again, either on an individual, local, or national level, causing further disruption to children's learning. Even in countries where schools have been reopened, the economic impact of the pandemic has limited the return to school of scores of children, particularly girls, the poorest, and the most marginalized. As we know, school is not just a place to learn. It is a place for children to meet friends, eat a nutritious meal, take a break from life at home, and a safe place. This pandemic threatens to rob children of learning that could lift them out of poverty and places them at increased risk of child marriage, forced labor, violence, and exploitation. Honorable committee members, as you draft concluding observations to reporting countries, please consider the following recommendations to ensure that children return safely to school. One is to ensure that government and partners organize cash transfer to the poorest families on our continent so they can afford their children going back to school. Also organize classes to support students to re-enter their catch-up classes to re-enter their education, ensuring that no children is left behind. Water sanitation, hygiene facilities, and in schools to make COVID-19 safe for students, teachers, and their families. And lastly, national back-to-school communications campaign to persuade communities that it is safe for children to return. The second crisis is the proliferation of armed conflict on the continent. Once again, 1 in 5 children in Africa live in a conflict zone. We have 15 active conflict on the continent. And children continue to bear the brunt of this conflict. We know that between 2014 and 2019, over 55,000 grave violations were committed against children in conflict-affected areas in Africa. This includes children being killed, maimed, recruited, or sexually assaulted, as well as attacks on schools and hospitals or denial of humanitarian access. Humanitarian access is a lifeline for millions of children affected by conflict. We commend the Special Rapporteur on CAC for the renewed commitment to the CAC agenda. We call on him and all members of the committee to remind all parties at war throughout the continent to end and prevent grave violations against children. Also, in the spirit of enhancing child participation in decisions that affect their lives, we're working on guidelines to ensure child participation in UN peace processes. We hope we can explore similar collaboration with the committee. Third, the climate crisis. Save the Children just published a report, Born into the Climate Crisis, Why We Must Act Now to Secure Children's Rights. The report highlights the lifetime exposure to a range of extreme climate-related events on children born in 2020 compared to people born in 1960. The report also outlines the devastating impact of climate crisis on children if urgent action is not taken, and features first-hand accounts from children in 11 countries on how climate change is impacting their lives, as well as recommendations on how to fight it. The climate impact risks trapping millions more children in long-term poverty and threatens to undo dedicated decades of progress in the fight against hunger and stunting, to name a few. To conclude, recommend that the committee consider inviting at least one African child climate justice activist to join the working group as an honorary member. We also recommend to review the outcome of COP 2016, which was ended on Saturday, and decide on the course of action. Save the Children will submit the report that I just mentioned born into the climate crisis, and I would like to take this opportunity to submit it virtually to members of the committee. We stand ready to contribute to the work of the committee on the group on working group on climate change. We are sounding the alarm on the triple crisis affecting our children on the continent, and call on the committee members to inspire and drive action to address the triple crisis. We wish the committee fruitful deliberations. Thank you for your attention.
Merci, Madame Doris.
Thank you, Doris, for that presentation. ACPF now.
ACPF.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, and thank you for this opportunity. Honorable members of the committee, excellencies, ambassadors, delegates, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. As Africa continues to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, our continent is facing complex and evolving economic, social, environmental, and political challenges that could set us back in our journey towards achieving the aspirations of an Africa fit for children. Against this backdrop, ACPF commends the committee on its efforts and undertakings that it has continued with to actively promote the rights of children, including your recent meetings, and for keenly following up on the decisions and outcomes of your earlier sessions. We also congratulate the newly elected Bureau of the committee and look forward to working with you all. ACPF wishes to draw the committee's attention to 3 urgent issues affecting children across the continent: child hunger, budgeting for children's rights, and gender disparities that persist among children. Allow me to address very briefly each of these issues. I will begin with child hunger, which is still a leading cause of child mortality and morbidity across Africa. It is deeply disturbing that 90% of children in Africa do not meet the criteria for minimum acceptable diet, that 60% do not get the minimum meal frequency. Therefore, child hunger is a pressing problem that requires urgent and coordinated action. It should concern all of us even further that more than half the African countries are currently off track to meeting the child hunger-related targets set out in the African Regional Nutritional Strategy of 2015 to 2025. We urge the committee to tirelessly draw state parties' attention to the importance of access to adequate and nutritious food in promoting the well-being of children. My second point is on children and economic policies. ACPF's research shows that many African countries have economic policies that are not child-sensitive, but instead continue to entrench economic inequality, driving families and children into deeper poverty. ACPF requests the committee to urge states to design and implement policies that are sensitive to children's rights at an economic level. This requires engaging with states to increase their financial investment in sectors that benefit children. Honorable Chair, 3 days from now, on Thursday, the 18th of November, ACPF will make public the findings of our first report on children and economic policies in Africa. This report is designed to provide guidance to states, regional bodies, policy and decision makers on the specific strategies they may wish to consider in enhancing financial resource allocation to enhancing child rights and well-being. The last area that I wish to draw your attention to, Honorable Chair and members of the committee, is the rights of girls, who are adversely affected by ongoing challenges, as you have heard from previous speakers, from conflict, COVID, and climate-related disasters, to name a few. We at ACPF commend the committee on its efforts to address gender discrimination and inequalities among children and among girls, to the ongoing work on teenage pregnancy, sexual and reproductive health, and child marriages. The committee's role in setting norms and standards that promote girls' rights will strengthen government's actions to address girls' rights. Finally, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ACPF remains firmly committed to assist the committee and governments as they strive to promote children's rights across the continent. You have the assurance of our deepest commitment to continue collaborating with you as we try to do more for all our children without exclusion or discrimination. I thank you all for your attention. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Joanne, pour cette présentation de la CPF.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joanne. Center for Reproductive Rights.
Centre pour les droits de la reproduction, est-ce que c'est Betty?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and committee members. The Center for Reproductive Rights thanks the distinguished Chairperson and committee members for the opportunity to make this statement. Pursuant to the Center's mandate to advance reproductive rights as fundamental human rights, the statement will address African states' obligations to ensure availability, accessibility, acceptability, and quality of sexual and reproductive health services, information, and commodities for adolescents. As this honorable committee is aware, criminalization of mutually consensual, non-exploitative sexual conduct between adolescents is common in many African countries. For instance, both Kenya and Tanzania have laws that rigidly set the age of consent at 18 years and criminalize all sexual activity that occurs between persons under this age. However, the DHS data shows that the age of first sexual experience below 18 years is the age of first sexual experience below 18 years is for 60% of girls and 51% of boys in Tanzania, and 50% of girls and 56% of boys in Kenya is below the age of 18. Although some of this sexual conduct is coercive, many adolescents engage in sex with each other that is consensual, non-coercive, and non-exploitative, and part of developmentally normal sexual expression. Thus, rigid criminalization of all sexual conduct in adolescents hinders this expression. Our research in Kenya confirms that such criminalization also makes adolescents afraid to seek sexual and reproductive health services and makes providers hesitant to provide these services for fear of incurring criminal liability. So the criminalization of such activity violates adolescents' rights to the highest attainable standard of health, their right to development, their right to dignity, and is inconsistent with the best interests of the child. In light of this, the Center calls on the committee to continually urge states to review their criminal laws to decriminalize mutually consensual, non-coercive, and non-exploitative sexual conduct among adolescent minors. The Center would also like to draw the committee's attention to the situation of girls in humanitarian situations, specifically their lack of access to sexual and reproductive health services and information. For instance, in Nigeria, maternal mortality is at 814 for every 100,000 live births. Abortion is also illegal unless the life of the woman is in danger, and only 45% of sexually active adolescents have access to modern contraception. In northern Nigeria, Boko Haram attacks include the armed kidnapping of hundreds of girls from schools and forcing them to choose between being married, being enslaved, or being sold for marriage or enslavement. Additionally, girls who manage to flee the Boko Haram attacks, end up in government camps where they are subjected to sexual violence, including being forced to engage in sex in exchange for basic needs such as food and shelter, and also being subjected to early and forced marriage. Girls are unable to seek redress for these violations because of barriers such as intimidation and retaliation from camp leaders, restricted movement outside the camp, ineffective investigation, and perceived corroboration requirements. The Center would like to urge the committee to promote its general comment on Article 22 among state parties, to urge state parties to fulfill their obligations as explained in the general comment, and We also call on the committee to require relevant states to report on the implementation of these obligations as they are enumerated in the general comment. We remain always available to work with the committee, and we thank you for this opportunity to give this statement.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Betty.
Thank you very much, Madam Betty. Kabari. This juncture, I would like to invite the Omar Institute organization. Omar Institute organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to all members of the committee, all protocols observed. I would like to, on behalf of the Omar Institute, join our voice with the other colleagues to congratulate the committee for continuing to work and to seamlessly continue its activities, despite the difficulties of the current climate across the world due to COVID-19, among other things. We're also grateful for this opportunity to make a brief presentation to you. As an institute, we remain very proud of our partnership with the committee, and we seize this opportunity to reiterate our commitment to maintaining and growing this partnership for the advancement of the rights and welfare of the African child across the continent through the fulfillment of the committee's mandate. And we also look forward to working with more of our partners, some of whom are here and are going to also make their own presentations about the work we continue to intend to do in the future. We want to make a particular reference to our plans to work on emerging areas, for example, climate change, issues of digital rights and sexual exploitation, especially against the background of the UN Committee's general comment on number 25 on children's rights in the digital era, as well as the committee's general comment on child sexual exploitation. And we will be working with our partners and look forward to collaborating with the committee on our plans for this project. With particular emphasis, we hope to also get the collaboration of the special rapporteurs on child participation and violence against children, and of course, maybe education and a number of others, given how their particular mandate relates to the issues that we intend to tackle. And we are expecting, as usual, your cooperation so that we continue to make our own contributions towards the advancement of the rights and welfare of the African child. I thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sanasim. Right now, I would like to invite Zimbabwean National Council for the Right and Welfare of the Child.
S'ils ne sont pas en ligne,
if they are not online, ECPAT, you have the floor. If ECPAT is not online, after the organization of
Defense for Children International.
The Defense for Children International.
For Children International.
Defense for Children International.
Mr. President.
Okay. Can you go ahead?
Thank you. Mr. President, almost honorable members of the committee, Defense for Children International commends the committee in its efforts to promote and protect children's rights in the region during the COVID-19 pandemic, and looks forward to the adoption and dissemination of the report on the impact of COVID-19 on children's rights in Africa. With this, the pandemic has exacerbated existing inequalities and the digital gap. Particular efforts should be made to include children from more marginalized backgrounds and groups. In particular, DCI recognizes the gender-based barriers to participation faced by girls. There is an urgent need to invest in the empowerment of children and young people, particularly girls and young women, to take up equal participatory roles in decision-making processes at all levels, including in policy formulation processes. As you may recall, in the start of the pandemic, children and young people faced extraordinary obstacles because of quarantine and school closure policies in every country. These challenges included an overwhelming increase in gender-based violence, including FGM, child marriage, sexual violence, trafficking, and unintended pregnancies in the region. From our field experience and research, there is evidence that shows that children and young people, particularly girls and young women, can change society if they're given the chance and support. Beyond the COVID-19 context, supporting children's right to participate in decisions that affect their lives is one key component not only in the CRC, but also the African Charter. Children's participation is also about giving them the power to control some of the things that impact them, at the same time helping adults to understand children's difficulties through their lens. The pandemic has also disrupted the delivery of justice systems, increasing the backlog of cases, resulting in lengthy judicial and administrative proceedings. The impact has been felt most acutely by children victims of violence and children deprived of liberty, including pretrial detainees. Though it is now established that depriving children of their liberty not only deprives them of their childhood, but also constitutes a form of structural violence against children with very serious and sometimes irreversible consequences to their physical and mental health, children continue to be deprived of their liberty in different contexts. The CI would therefore like to draw your attention to the UN Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty and highlight the recommendation for states to significantly reduce the numbers of children held in places of detention and other places of deprivation of liberty, and instead apply non-custodial solutions and make all efforts in addressing the root causes. With this, we recommend the AU states to do the following. First, dedicate time, space, and funds for leadership programs to build capacity of children and young people as agents of change, particularly girls and young women. Identify or create decision-making platforms for consulting children at regional, national level on policy and legislation. Member states to drastically reduce the numbers of children held in places of detention and other places of deprivation of liberty, and instead apply an custodial solution and make efforts to reintegrate them in society. Finally, nominate a focal point within the governmental structures in charge of issues related to deprivation of liberty of children in order to coordinate appropriate follow-ups of the recommendation of the UN Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Kabunga. Don't know if the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights are present. And the online initiative for
Yes, we are. Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings from the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. And as the initiative, we also equally commend the committee on the execution of its mandate, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And today, specifically, we would like to address a few issues that as Uganda, we've seen profoundly affecting or impacting children's rights. And that has been specifically on one, health service delivery, but then also two, on education, and thirdly, the concern of private actors and their involvement in social service delivery. Now, regarding health, as Uganda, we've noticed that there has been under chronic financing of health services in Uganda for a long time. The allocation of the budget to health services has been hovering between 6 to 7%. And that is totally against and behind the 15% commitment that was made in the Abuja declaration. And so because of this, during the pandemic, we've seen the stark consequences. And much of the time, it has been commonplace that issues of shortage of drugs, poor ambulance system, health workers and health infrastructure being weak have been everywhere. And moving on also to education, we've noticed that currently Uganda is the only country in the continent that still has its schools closed. And we still await for the government to do the reopening of primary and secondary schools early next year. And that, notwithstanding, we've seen that the protracted closure of schools has also in turn fostered inequities in access to education, with children from well-to-do families continuing with their education online, while those from poor backgrounds are still left out. And Honorable Chair, also to speak to the issue of private actors in social service delivery, Uganda continues to foster a private sector-led economy, and this has led to the proliferation of these actors both in health services, but also in the education sector. Health services, we can see that 55% of all health facilities belong to the private sector. And even in education, the consequences of doing so have led to private schools charging exorbitant amounts of money and therefore leaving out a number of children. The same has been seen in the health sector, where out-of-pocket costs to access healthcare have also skyrocketed. And we've also seen private healthcare providers constantly abuse patients' rights by ways of, detaining patients because of failure to pay. And so we are calling upon the committee to see that such issues are addressed. And in particular to the committee, we would like to recommend that the committee develops a general comment to guide states on private involvement in social service delivery in such a way that promotes the rights of children, but then also secondly, for the committee to encourage states to utilize the Abidjan principles on the provision of public education and the regulation of private involvement in the education sector. But also more specifically to the government of Uganda, that the committee recommends, one, that the government robustly invests in the public health care system, as well as passing the National Health Insurance Scheme bill that we have seen will go a long way in cushioning people against unforeseen circumstances or events such as the pandemic. And then also to robustly still invest in public services generally, such as health, education, and water. But then also for the government to go ahead and develop a minimum unit cost required to educate a child in primary and secondary school, and use it as a benchmark for financing universal primary and secondary education, as well as the regulation of fees in private schools. Honorable Chair, thank you again for the opportunity for the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights to present a brief statement to you today, and we still remain open for any further engagements with the committee. We wish you fruitful deliberations going forward.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Briand, pour cette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Briand, for this presentation. Now we'll give the floor to Center for Human Rights.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. On behalf of the Center for Human Rights, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to address this 38th session of the committee. We would like to congratulate you for successfully convening the session virtually despite the ongoing challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We join our voices with fellow delegates to congratulate you on the renewal of your term as the chairperson, along with the newly elected bureau of the committee. And we look forward to working with you to deliver on the mandate of the committee. Honorable Chair and members of the committee, this session is coming at a very at the tail end of a year in which we have witnessed a number of developments relevant to the rights of children. And on top of this is the COVID-19 pandemic, which is continuing to affect the lives of so many globally. In this year, though, we noted that the conversations or the issues around COVID have progressed beyond the immediate health impact to the medium-term impact on livelihoods, access to vaccines, and post-COVID recovery, including the imperative to build back better and equal. This crisis has taught us that we need to be deliberate about including all voices in the design of policy and responses, and that it is important that we avert the exclusion of children's issues from the post-COVID recovery if we are to achieve equitable health outcomes. So in this regard, the Center for Human Rights acknowledges that the committee has taken several initiatives, including the recently completed study on the impact of the pandemic on children in Africa. We, however, urge the committee to go beyond impact assessment and response guidance to proactively engage with the wider forums in which the Building Better initiatives are taking place, such as the ongoing advocacy on vaccine access and equity, as well as children's access and eligibility for vaccines. As we all may have noted globally that these conversations have already begun and have progressed in other regions, we would crave this guidance, a regional guidance on how to go about these issues in as far as children are concerned in our region. Honorable Chair, members of the committee, in the course of this year, the Center has had a number of initiatives on children's rights, two of which we wish to share with this forum. The first of this is that on the back of the 30th anniversary of the Charter, which we had last year, the committee, the Center embarked on an assessment of the contribution of the Charter to socioeconomic rights of children in Africa. This assessment comprised thematic studies on selected socioeconomic rights, and the studies culminated in a book, which upon publication will provide us with solid evidence for future engagement on socioeconomic rights, as well as to contribute to building an endogenous discussion or discourse on children's rights in Africa. Secondly, within a wider context of the protection of human rights in the interaction with technology, the Center has been engaged in a project to understand, document, and advocate for the protection of children in the digital sphere. The protection of children in the context of the digital sphere is certainly a subject that has been on the minds of all of us and also has been acknowledged by the committee previously. So on the basis of this, the regional study that we undertook included 19 country studies, as well as a regional report, which has been validated with key stakeholders as of 3rd of November. This report provides us with evidence for engagement, taking us beyond the anecdotal evidence that we have had so far and providing a basis for a contextualized and nuanced policy engagement and leadership on this relatively new frontier of children's existence. This report noted, amongst other things, the need for regional guidance on state parties' response to a challenge and opportunity of the digital sphere as far as children are concerned. It has already been noted during this the opening session of this session that a harmonized regional approach to internet governance and technology regulation is long overdue. We would like to request the audience of the committee at a time that is convenient to you to share and discuss the findings and recommendations of both these studies on socioeconomic rights and on privacy rights of children in the digital sphere with you. Honorable Chair, members of the committee, the Center notes the unfortunate emergence, re-emergence, and continuation of conflicts and crises in various parts of the country. The Center urges the committee to give renewed consideration to this issue. And as we have previously mentioned in this forum, we acknowledge and appreciate the committees that the committees seized of this issue in certain ways, including in collaboration with the PSC. We, however, note that the mainstream dialogue for conflict resolution and management in all these contexts is overwhelmingly adult-centric, and we call on the committee making use of its mandate to strategically and actively engage with various stakeholders in this context to bring visibility to the rights and welfare of children. In closing, Honorable Chair and members of the committee, the Center would like to take this opportunity to reiterate our commitment to working with you and to support the mandate of the committee in its entirety. We are committed to availing our capacities and resources to enhance the capacity of the work of the committee as far as possible. On behalf of the Center for Human Rights, I would like to take this opportunity again to wish you fruitful deliberations for the rest of this session. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Nkata Murungi.
Dr. Nkata Murungi. I think we only had a few organizations that were not online. Maybe we can try once again and see if they've come back online. And the organization that will not be able to present in the order in which I want to announce, unfortunately, there won't be any other opportunity.
C'est pour quelle organisation? Edmond, c'est pour quelle organisation?
Edmond, c'est pour quelle organisation?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I just wanted to make a brief comment on behalf of IHRDA.
Est-ce que c'est enregistré parce que...
Is this recorded? Which organization is this?
This is the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa in Banjul.
Okay. Banjul.
Bon, il faut vérifier auprès d'Ayalo si vous avez été...
Ensure if you were registered. Ensure that you were registered. Verify.
Yes, please. In fact, we just got the link for the meeting just this morning. And that's why we're asking your kind permission if we could just make a brief statement in just about a minute.
Vous pouvez attendre.
You can wait.
Very well.
We'll come back to you later.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson.
Est-ce que Quality Now est en ligne pour le moment?
Is Quality Now on Quality Now? Is it? Are they online?
No. World Vision.
World Vision. Are you online?
World Vision.
World Vision. Are you online?
Aboubekrin, il faut éteindre votre micro.
Aboubekrin, please turn off your mic, please.
SOS Exclave.
SOS Exclave. Are you on? SOS Exclave. Are you online?
No.
That leaves us with Zimbabwe National Council for the Welfare of Children. Are you online?
No. ECPAT.
ECPAT. Are you online?
ECPAT.
ECPAT. Are you on? Edmond, you're the last speaker, and you have 3 minutes. Edmond, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson, dear committee members, on behalf of IHRDA, we want to sincerely congratulate the Bureau and pledge our commitment to continue working with you. We also take note of the fact that this year we have enjoyed a very good working relationship with the Secretariat, and we were pleased to have visited the committee secretariat in Lesotho, Maseru, in June this year, and had very fruitful deliberations with the officer in charge as well as the whole team. We also look forward to continue working with the committee in our upcoming projects under the African Continental Free Trade Area processes in Africa. We take this opportunity also to urge the committee that as it has begun holding implementation hearings, and particularly following the hearing that we held on the TFA case against Cameroon, we would urge the committee to continue its follow-up with the state party and provide feedback to victims as well as all of us partners who continue to engage with the committee to ensure full implementation of state obligations under the Charter. With these words, we wish to congratulate the committee in these difficult times for continuing to hold its sessions, and we wish the committee very fruitful deliberations during this 38th session. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Edmond. We have come to the end of this session of presentation by the various partners, and we would like to thank all our guests, all our August guests, distinguished delegates of these parties, the representatives of children, PRC, AGA, National Human Rights Institutions, as well as the network of these institutions, civil society organizations, and of course, we're also with Mrs. Sise Mariam, who represented Her Excellency the Commissioner responsible for Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development. In a nutshell, we would like to extend our gratitude to everybody and also thank the interpreters for the job well done. Now, we are going to go back to our closed session. Our session concerning the continuation of deliberations that have not been advanced before we started the opening ceremony. I would like to request that the Secretariat assist us to ensure that the members of the committee and the Secretariat can continue the session. Thank you, everybody.
Demain, c'est à 10 heures et nous allons commencer avec le rapport de l'Éthiopie.
We'll start tomorrow at 10 with Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to remind participants that 10 o'clock Southern Africa time. Thank you, Chair.
Merci, Ayalo.
Thank you, Ayalo.
Isaac, you may end the meeting for today. Isaac?
the Bible.
Dear participants, as the committee is now going for a closed session, as the chair advised, we are now going to a closed session, so you may kindly leave the room just for today, and we look forward to see you on tomorrow for the tomorrow session, where the committee will be considering the state-party report of the government of Ethiopia. So, except for the members of the committee and the secretariat, our guests may now leave the meeting room, please. Oh, we still see some participants in the meeting room, please.
You can remove them.
No, they will find it hard to join again tomorrow, Isaac.